Hey, what's up guys? Sir Emanon here with a very unique video today, and we're actually live on stream on Twitch right now. So I have a very special opportunity to interview an amazing player, recent YCS, two-time YCS champion Ramiro Garcia, who's just had a fantastic series of weekends here. He not only three-peat YCS topped back-to-back, but he also won back-to-back YCSs with Lunalight Orcust, winning at Guadalajara and Fort Worth. And even more impressively, he finished with an undefeated 16-0 match run at Fort Worth just this past weekend, which is an amazing accomplishment. And joining us as well is his very close friend and testing partner, Reininger, who has multiple YCS tops himself and has also been very instrumental in the construction and the deck building process of Ramiro's deck list. So today, both of them are here to discuss their insights as far as card choices, format theory, and just overall tournament experiences are concerned. So I want to thank both of you guys for joining me today, and how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
Doing well.
All right, awesome. Anything you guys want to say before we get into the specifics, or like anything just want to quickly mention?
I would like to thank Nick again for all the help. While we're live.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
I like reminding him.
Alright, so I have Ramiro's deck list on the screen right now so that the viewers at home can reference while I go through some of the theory and the explanations here. And I guess for the purposes of this interview, I'm going to be focusing mainly on Fort Worth because, you know, that's the most recent event that happened. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. So I guess the first question I have is, how was your guys' general overall tournament experience? Did things generally go as planned for you? Were there any like roadblocks or unexpected obstacles? And how did you guys feel as the day progressed, as you, Ramiro, continued to just, you know, dominate match after match and just went undefeated the entire time?
So for me, the tournament really went as planned. Every matchup was pretty much solved for us. We knew what we talked about the day before, what we were side decking for every matchup, so we didn't have to worry about it. So whenever we were playing our game, it was just like easy to side deck and don't have to worry about what's going in and out, and that's a big help. Saves you a lot of time, saves you a lot of stress, and then you just play the game one game at a time.
Anything you want to add, Nick? Or
Yeah, so my tournament experience isn't like as important to what is going on for here, but for Ramiro, yeah, we just prepared a lot for the event. His success over like the last 4 weekends definitely played a his technical play is just like off the charts with this deck in this tournament. Made very few mistakes. We went over like a long tournament report, so this is really good for him.
yeah, so I guess you guys kind of just, you know, ironed out all the kinks, and, you know, by the time this weekend and last weekend, even obviously because you won both of them, came up, you know, you had everything pretty much, you know, ironed out, and everything was pretty much optimized, right?
Yeah, it was very few situations I found myself in that I didn't know how to get around them and stuff like that. So pretty much every situation I faced this weekend I'd already seen, and I knew how to maneuver around it and find a way to win the game.
All right, awesome. Okay, so obviously, as evidenced by the back-to-back wins you had, you have a very solid understanding and grasp of the format and the current metagame. So did anything in particular change between Niagara or Guadalajara to now? And overall, what was your expected meta call for Fort Worth? Like, what decks were you expecting to play against?
So for Niagara, our main deck is exactly the same. It was exactly the same for all 3 YCSs. We found it was just the best fit. We messed around going to 40, going to 45, not playing impermanence, playing cosmic, playing impermanence. And ultimately we found that impermanence just like won every game. You resolved it. Whether you were going first or second, it just helped you win the game. So we wanted to play that card in our main deck, and we didn't regret it. At least I didn't.
No, Permanence was like really good. It was just the best card in the game right now, hand trap wise, you can play.
Yeah, and YCS Guadalajara, I think every match or every game I won a top cut was because of impermanence, because I was like going second and I just opened it and it was really good.
Oh yeah, that's really broken. Did you play like a lot of Orcust there, or?
Honestly, Orcust was probably the deck I played the least
Really?
from
Wow.
all 3 weekends. Yeah, at Niagara, I played a lot of back row decks, such as like True Draco, Sky Striker, Guru, and I also played
I played a lot of
against.
Salamangreat as well.
I played a lot of Salamangreat, but at that tournament, I played against 2 pure Orcust decks, and that was a little difficult to play against. But once I figured out what they were doing, it became pretty easy.
All right.
As far
Oh,
okay.
yeah, sorry.
As far as our extract did change from Niagara to Guadalajara, and I think I was maining Mega Fleet. Yeah, I was playing Mega Fleet and the second Galatea over Eagle Swarm Nightmare and Firefighting Emanon. And I actually lost in top 32 against my friend Gunther playing Cyber Orcust.
Yeah.
Who I later beat in Guadalajara in top 16. But I lost that match because he played around Mega Fleet every game and I just couldn't summon it. And had I had Nightmare in my extra deck, I would have been able to win.
Yeah, the card's just super powerful in like those matchups.
Yeah, and that matchup specifically, it's really, really good. And so yeah, the extra from Guadalajara is the same. Garumadol is a very good card. It helps you play around Gnome, and it helps you push through back row and gives you another monster when you pop your own Tiger. And then the only thing that changed from Guadalajara was our side deck. I was playing 3 Nashter, Chimeric Fortress Dragon, and Abyss Dweller over the 3 Gnomes and 2 Phantazmays.
Were those changes for like any particular matchup, or was it just like a general change that you felt were just overall more encompassing like card choices?
I just felt that those choices were going to help be better overall. Ironically enough, Nashter did win me every game. I saw it. I knew going forward it wasn't going to be the same.
Yeah.
And I wanted cards that would help me overall in more matchups, like Phantazmay. It definitely covers more ground, and it's a very, very good card.
I'd like to add onto that, like the reason why the Naxter didn't stay in the side deck was because Gunther, I think 2 other of the Cyber Orcust players, they decided to release their deck lists from Guadalajara on like Wednesday before Dallas. And the problem with it is they were all playing Artifact Sanctum in their deck, which we'll probably talk about later.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
It made Naxter like not viable anymore against that matchup.
Yeah, that was something I was considering. Is like it's a certain just way to out the board, you know, a lot easier than just like relying on having Mega Fleet only, because obviously they can play around it. But yeah, that was actually something I was gonna talk about a little bit, but you guys covered that. So yeah, how often did you anticipate the mirror match in particular? So you guys obviously had Gnome and Lancey in your side deck for the matchup, but like, did you expect that deck more, or did you expect like Pure Orcust, Cyber Orcust? Like, how much did you expect the mirror match in particular compared to those other matchups?
So this is actually really funny. When I was talking to some other friends, well, actually my teammates from Epic Cards and Games, about how many mirror matches we would see. So at my locals, after I topped Niagara, almost everyone started playing deck. So my locals is flooded with Lunalight, but that's not a good representation of how other people at a big tournament are going to play it.
Right.
And we started comparing the format we're in right now to Goki format. How even though Goki format was like the most powerful deck and it had the high ceiling, obviously people don't want to play that mirror match because they're just afraid they're going to lose the roll, and if you don't see your side deck, you're just going to lose. And typically in that format, from what we saw from the big tournaments, we like recalled how many you saw like during an overall tournament, and it was usually like you would only play like 1 to 3 of the mirrors max. So that's what I expected going into this tournament. that I would only have to play anywhere from 1 to 3 mirror matches. But obviously, I wanted Gnome in my side deck just in case I did play into, so I could have 9 cards that did something against that deck. But unfortunately for Nick, I believe he played like 4 back to back.
Oh wow.
It was 5 in a row. It was very unfortunate.
Rough.
Yeah.
So how many did you end up playing against, like in Swiss or in Top Cut?
I played 1 the entire tournament.
Oh wow, so pretty good I guess there.
Yeah, very fortunate. And in Guadalajara, I played against 1 as well. And in Niagara, I played against no mirrors. So,
Yeah, I don't think I played any mirrors at Niagara either. So,
Yeah.
but I guess the deck was a lot less popular at that event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
So how about like the other matchups? Like, what was your expected, like, I guess spread for like expectation of seeing like pure Orcust, or like Cyber Orcust, or Striker, Salamangreat, and other things like that?
So what I thought, I believe we were going to see mainly Sky Striker and Salamangreat, simply being that those are like 2 of the more cheaper decks, and those decks are like already figured out, so it's not hard to like make a fucking deck. And so yeah, that's what I expected, and that is what I played against most in the entire weekend.
So did you like end up sticking with the Lunalight Orcust deck because like you spent a lot of time fearing it, or did you like stick with it more so because you thought it just had good matchup and good coverage against the other decks in the format?
Both basically, since I put some work into it, and I really like this deck. I feel really comfortable. There's not really a situation that I didn't put in, I hadn't seen already, so I just felt really prepared with the deck, and overall, I think it has like the best just all around, in my opinion. Obviously, the hardest matchup would probably be, I would say, would be a mirror match. People would say Dragon Orcust, which it can be, but if you play smart and well, it's definitely a winnable match.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. Like the ceiling of the deck's just like insane compared to everything else in the field right now, in my opinion. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything to add?
Yeah. So like this on that, whenever like I talk to Ramiro about like playing decks or like certain decks that we're considering playing, I would never like, tell Ramiro to like consider a deck or play a deck because he's comfortable with it. But Ramiro's like really good at learning decks really fast. So if I were thinking that Lunalight was not the correct choice for the event that we were playing in, he more than likely would not have played it. But like Ramiro said, and you were saying, like Lunalight is just like so unbelievably strong. It's like probably the most resilient deck in the game in probably a really long time. With the ceiling that it has, so there's just really no reason to not play it, because if you can play your hand, odds of you winning that game are like very high.
Yeah. Alright, so I guess we can talk more about like the specific card choices, so I guess we can go over the main deck first. So you mentioned in your deck profile, and as well you mentioned earlier that your list hadn't changed from Niagara. And I guess the first thing I want to ask is, obviously you guys deemed Impermanence to be the best choice, but like, was there any reason for not including cards like Cosmic Cyclone anywhere, or like, you know, just general like things like Call by the Grave, maybe to like combat the rising popularity of like DD Crow and Gnome and stuff? Obviously, like you mentioned, you could play around Gnome with the Darumidal and things, but like, did you ever feel that it would just be a nice safety net to have, like in the cases where like your opponents say drew like multiple hand traps, or like Nibiru with Gnome or something, or like did you ever miss like Cosmic to be able to just trade freely with Crescendo or Salamangreat Roar going second or things like that?
So we debated about that for sure for a while. We found that if we ended up playing one of those cards, it would only be like 1 hit 2. So we didn't want to play more than 42. We were playing 45, it really wasn't working out for us. And I did like Cosmic Cyclone for Impermanence for the fact that after you resolve a danger, if you draw it, it's live, and then Impermanence is not live, especially if you're going second. Call by the Grave is also a really good card as a safety net. In my opinion, I'm not really afraid uh, any like one card except for Dimensional Shifter, but not every deck can play it.
Right.
So I think that was like one of the only cards that we were like, if they have it, they have it, and they bet like they would kill us on their turn. If not, then we're just gonna beat them on our turn.
To elaborate on that, whenever we thought about Call by the Grave, the problem with that card is the only card that stops are the cards that the deck already plays really, really well around. So we didn't feel like that was necessary in our deck. Specifically Lunalight cards and having access to like Azathoth makes those cards pretty useless most of the time. It's very rare that a card that Call by the Grave stops is gonna be very impactful against us.
Yeah. The hand trap I was the most scared of, besides Dimensional Shifter, was Infinite Impermanence, and obviously Call by the Grave doesn't stop that.
Right. Right.
So yeah.
Like, did you ever get like DD Crowed or anything of that sort over the weekend, or not really?
Oh yeah, I got DD Crowed a bunch. I think I got DD Crowed like every time I got DD Crowed, they had 2 in their hand,
Really?
and my hand was still just combo. Like I was still able to play around it or play through it.
Like, how did you find your opponents were generally using it? Just out of curiosity.
Usually they would use it when I attempted to activate my Martin effect to bounce my Tiger, or when I attempted to summon Martin from a Perfume. So usually like my first summon, or like the first chance they got, because they want to stop you from getting 2 level 4s on the board before you make Azathoth, because then it becomes useless.
Right. Did they ever DD Crow like Perfume or anything?
I think once they DD Crow my Perfume, and that's because I believe I activated Perfume, they DD Crowed me, and then I revealed a danger, and I had 2 level 4s on the board, and then they weren't going to be able to activate it again, so they figured hitting the Perfume was going to be their best chance.
So you were just able to like, I guess, force it based on like how you were able to like utilize Nyarla and stuff, or like Azathoth, just to like be able to force early activations.
Yeah, basically.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was like, the only way it's really like impactful is if your hand is like very, I guess I would say like subpar. But in that instance, majority of hand traps would be able to stop you.
Right. Like, it's very hard for the deck to just not open very well.
Yeah.
So like, there's so much redundancy. Yeah. Alright, so the next point, I guess, or next like question I have is why you opted to main like Imperial Order and side Eradicator. So like, this was a consistent thing that you had even since Niagara. Like, this didn't really change for you. And you mentioned, I believe in your deck profile, that you won your top 4 matchup with by using Eradicator versus Striker specifically. And I feel like if you know, a lot of the time, like, the cards serve very similar purposes. So like, what determines, I guess, Order being more main deck worthy, and like, when would you side it out versus like putting Eradicator in, like, etc., etc.?
So there is instances where you get like impermanence on your Mermaid or whatever, and you're still able to get to Griffin, or like other situations where you're just not able to put what's it called, a 2500 higher Dark Monster, and in that instance Imperial Order is a little better. As far as between that, I personally just liked it a little better than Eradicator. Maybe Nick can.
Yeah, anything to add in here, Nick, or? Oops.
I'll bring it over.
Order. So when we built this deck, or whenever I first started trying to figure out which, I guess what you call like blowout card you could set off of Eradicator, or off of a Griffin, excuse me.
Yeah.
Would be the best. There are a lot of times, like Ramiro said, where you can still get to Griffin, but sometimes if your Mermaid gets stops, you don't want to have Eradicator in your deck. Something that I found to be like extremely impactful is whenever a blind game 1, which is usually the most for this floodgate purpose that you're playing. You want something that is extremely strong against everything in the meta. And when you look at it, you have, in my opinion, I think you have about 4 or 5 decks that are good, being Striker, the 3 Orcust variants being Pure Orcust, Lunalight Orcust, and Cyber Dragon Orcust, and then you have Salamangreat. Thunder's been kind of on the back burner.
Right. And we have a very good matchup anyway.
Right, yeah, you have a good matchup against it already, so it's not really a huge deal. And if you play a card like Eradicator, you're making yourself be forced to play in a way where you have to or ding to use Eradicator. And in which case, when you end an Eradicator, you're forcing yourself to usually get Babble as well, instead of getting Crescendo. Against a lot of different decks right now, Crescendo is like really, really good blind first, because it cuts them off from a lot of the different engines. And when you draw, or when you get to access to order, if you happen to be playing Sky Striker, it almost generally wins you the game, whereas Eradicator doesn't always. And the problem with Eradicator is if you did activate Eradicator and say draw phase, standby phase, or some point during the turn, and they have Ray in their hand and they just cards, you can Ray, get Kagari, get back engaged, and then they have like 3 more cards to work with. And that's the only deck that can really like actually play through the board you create with Griffin and like Dweller and Galatea if you're setting Eradicator, because then you're not going to have Crescendo. So Order just found to be like way better against the field currently, where you could still just side Eradicator for the decks you wanted it in against, and Order was just good against everything.
So what kind of matchups would you board Eradicator in? Because like I think I mentioned earlier, like Ramiro cited it in against his top 4 striker matchup. So I'm just like wondering like which decks you determined were better for Eradicator to put in like post side.
So actually, for the reason that I put Eradicator in that top 4 matchup was we always keep Imperial Order in against Sky Striker no matter what. And I've actually played against the guy who played in top 4 before, actually. And I know he's a huge fan of going second in that deck. And honestly, it was just the in the heat moment, because like I don't even think we sided in Eradicator going second against Sky Striker. And I was like, I was feeling it, and I was like, I think Eradicator is going to be pretty good to side in. So I had Eradicator and Imperial Order.
So you just wanted like more blowouts just for that specific like matchup?
Yeah, so that specific matchup.
Or if that specific game, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. It was one of those in the moment things. But Eradicator goes in over Order, obviously, against like things like Ultradice, which isn't that popular, but it is popular. And we just wanted to have a card that could easily go out for that matchup. And Eradicator is also really good against what's it called? True Draco?
Draco, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's really good against, yeah. And I do prefer in some instances over Order, because if you're not able to put Dweller on the board, they can obviously like pop your Order with Heritage or Disciples.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, to touch more on Eradicator, specifically after switch to the person that was playing Striker that he played in top 4, I think Eradicator was like very specific for that person, because he had played him before in other tournaments, so we knew he was obviously playing Striker. But then we also knew from being in the tournament that if you didn't know, he was playing Toon Table of Content and Toon Cyber Dragon. So we wanted to like eliminate the chances of like him having that option. So I'm pretty sure if Ramiro and I talk correctly, he actually had Eradicator and Order in his deck. Specifically that way he could see one of them if he didn't draw it, or he could have the choice with the Griffin combo.
Gotcha. It makes sense. Alright, so I know some players are probably going to ask, and I personally agree with the choice, but just gonna ask anyway in case some people are curious. Would you mind explaining why you opted not to run Gizmic in the deck?
I believe I tried it like maybe for like 2 like local tournaments. It's not really a card I like to see Um, Personally, in this deck, I don't like banishing A cards because I think
Yeah.
every card is pretty important. And if I did play it, I would be playing it over World Wand, and because I just wouldn't want to play both. But overall, World Wand performed like wonders. It was like probably one of the best cards in my deck. It's very important in the mirror match. Whenever you play any Orcust mirror, basically, you want all your resources, especially your Orcust cards. And I just believe you don't want to banish any of them off Gizmek in that situation. That's all I have to say about that. But maybe Nick has something else he wants to say about it.
Yeah, no, like you said, the only other card you'd take out for Gizmek would be World Wand, but when you're playing a deck like this and you're playing the Orcust engine that you're playing, there are a lot of instances where like Nightmare sending World Wand to give the 800 boost is like the difference between one game. There's also just like a lot of niche plays in this deck where the reason why Evil Swarm Nightmare is like so important in our deck is because after your Orcust comboing, you get locked into Darks. So there are a lot of instances where you use the wand to get Heart back to finish off your rank 4 combo, or rank 4 with Griffin. And Gizmek obviously doesn't do that, and it doesn't facilitate what the deck is trying to accomplish, but World Wand like does it really well.
I agree 100%. Just for the people out there, because I've gotten comments on that card quite a bit, so just figured I'd touch on it. Alright, so I guess that's everything I really have to say for the main deck. So let's go ahead and talk about siding theory some more, which I personally feel is very interesting, especially considering how the main deck hasn't really changed at all anyway. So I guess we'll talk about some metagame trends leading up to Fort Worth. So the first thing is DD Crow that we already kind of talked about. But did you guys ever consider testing that card for your own side deck? And why did you ultimately decide just to not run it?
So going in, I believe me and Nick talked about the best two hand traps being DD Crow and Infinite Impermanence. We just found that our room was very limited in our side deck and main deck. And overall, we just felt that Infinite Impermanence was better, as we've said before. And in the side deck as well, there's just no room for. There is room, I could say, but these other cards that we play instead are just higher impact cards than DD Crow. And that's basically the theory we chose. Is we wanted the higher impact cards over DD Crow.
Anything to add, Nick? Or
Yeah, he basically touched on everything. I guess DD Crow just in general. Most people play DD Crow in a lot of the pure builds that could play hand traps, which was absolutely correct. We expected that going into this tournament.
right?
And when it came to the side deck playing it, there's very few cards you can actually take out in the main deck. So you have to choose your cards like very carefully, and you need cards that are like high impact. And DD Crow, while it can be really high impact, it doesn't always get you there or give you the best chance of getting there. However, if DD Crow would have been in our side deck, it would have been like one of the other 4 cards we were considering, other than the 15 that we chose. So keep that in mind. It's definitely really strong, but just didn't make the cut.
So out of curiosity, what were some of those other cards that you were considering, like the other 4 or 3?
So
If you
the
can
other
remember.
so the other 4 cards. So like we talked about playing Sanctum at one point. That was one of them. That one got out really quickly. It was really hard, I think, for both of us to take out the second Dweller from our side deck. I don't know if Ramiro has any comments on that, but it was in our deck for 2 weeks, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I really like that. I know. I think you played it at Niagara, didn't you? The second
Yeah.
Dweller.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the second Dweller.
Yeah, I saw that and I was like, that's actually really smart.
Yeah, it won me a lot of games that I probably would have lost if it wasn't there.
What was the ultimate deciding factor that led you to cut it? Was it just space, or like was there something else that led you to just decide not to run it for Fort Worth?
It was basically just like space. We wanted the Phantazmay in to give us a chance against that that Sanctum fiasco.
Sanctum
And-
deck.
Yeah.
Sanctum deck. Yeah, and we knew we wanted to play 3 of every other card except for like Eradicator, obviously. And yeah, I just couldn't find room.
So back to like the DD Crow part, Dweller. If you're most people say like they have like a 16th or 17th side deck card. Dweller was that like one other card we absolutely wanted in our deck, but it's just we couldn't put it in there or find the room to like for this tournament. And then DD Crow would have been like the 17th, 18th, and 19th slot if we could play 19 cards.
Yeah. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So it's literally just a matter of space, pretty much, and
You have to choose right.
You have to choose the best. Like the best 15.
Yeah. So it's like a combination of like coverage as well as just impact, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. That's on the money.
All right. So I guess in a similar vein, were there any other hand traps that you guys were considering, or did you just feel that like no Melantia and Phantazmay were just like sufficient enough, either for like being turn skips in the case of no Melantia, and like just being able to dig for side cards for like Phantazmay and stuff?
I felt that 8 was like enough. / it had to be. I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
Because I definitely want to have 3 twins and 3 Reboot in my deck in the format that we're in, where anyone can play anything. And you don't want to lose to cards like Mystic Mine, or cards like there can only be one summon limit, cards like that. Speaking of Mystic Mine, I got Mystic Mine a lot.
Really? Was it like just Striker, or was it like other decks playing Mystic Mine too?
It was just Striker, but I dropped a few game ones because they had double Mystic Mine, or a way to play through my order and Crescendo. It was kind of upsetting.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So I guess in those instances, did you ever miss like maybe more back row hate? Like either, obviously you determined that like Impermanence was a superior card for main decking, and like you didn't want to play more cards. Like you felt 42 was fine, but like were there ever any times where you would consider like maybe trying to fit in like Impermanence and maybe like a main deck Cosmic or something, or was this like you just didn't feel it was justified?
Yeah, we definitely played. Well, I definitely played that. There was a point. Don't laugh.
I'm sorry.
Okay. There was a point where there was 2 Cosmics and 2 Impermanents in my deck, and we have a funny thing about 2 of that it just should not be done. But I definitely just wanted to test it out and see which one was better, and yeah, Impermanence is better, like you said. The other thing with Cosmic is Cosmic gets a little worse sided games because they're siding in Lancia against you every time, and it's just another dead card you can draw if they shotgun Lancia, or once you reveal danger they shotgun Lancia and you happen to draw Cosmic after that.
Gotcha.
And in that instance, Twin is better in the side deck.
Alright, so another thing that I noticed from your YCS Niagara deck list was that you side deck Sphere Mode, but you dropped it for Fort Worth and possibly Guadalajara too. So what was the motivation behind dropping it? Was it because like you felt Orcust was on the uptrend and you wanted like other cards for that matchup? Or did you just think that like the decks that Sphere Mode was like good against, for example, I guess like Pendulum or whatever, just ended up not really being played? Or was it like a combination of both?
I would say it was a combination of both. I never sided in Sphere Mode in Niagara. I think that was the only card that never went in. And,
so you just didn't think it was like very impactful.
Yeah, I just didn't think it was very impactful. And like you said, there was Pure Orcust was getting more popular. So I wanted a better spread all around, and that's where the Master came from for Mexico.
Right.
It was obviously obviously another extender, and it was good against the Cyber Dragon deck and against Pure. So.
All right. Cool.
Where that went. Yeah.
Anything to add, Nick? Or
No, yeah, Sphere Mode was like for that event. We thought that like Pendulum was going to be good. We also thought that we knew Lunalight was gaining popularity. We knew it was like going to exist. Obviously, I think it was like 2 or 3. You, Ramiro, and then the guy that got second. There's like 3 in top cut.
yeah.
So it definitely existed at that tournament, and we thought it would be good against the deck because the deck doesn't need the normal summons. But yeah, Sphere Mode was just like it was good for that event, and we just found better alternatives for future events.
Yeah, I actually like also kind of over prepped for Pendulum. Like I respected it way too much and ended up just not really doing anything.
Not playing it.
Yeah. All right. So I was talking to Nick during the middle of last week, and this is back to the whole Sanctum thing. So we were talking about like Cyber Orcust, like just obviously citing Sanctum, and like that was a big problem because it's literally just skip your turn. So like, how did you guys end up combating it? Like you were talking about in your deck profile, like Reboot and Lancey and Phantazmay, but like, did you expect maybe other matchups to utilize Sanctum, or was it really just Cyber Orcust, and like, was it really just hinging on those side cards for it?
So the biggest difference between Cyber Dragon Orcust playing that card and any other deck playing that card is when you play against Cyber Dragon Orcust, if they're able to get Sanctum off, they have cards like Overflow that can pop your monsters if you choose to wall up with just a bunch of monsters on the board. And it's basically the only deck that can play Sanctum that can just kill you.
Yeah.
And yeah, because every time I actually got Sanctumed at Niagara by like 3 different Salad players, and I didn't lose a single game that I got Sanctumed because they just weren't able to kill me.
Oh, like you were able to like wall up with like 3 or 4 monsters and they just couldn't kill you?
Yeah, they just couldn't kill me, and then when I got my turn, they died.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. I think I won a game in Niagara. I was like at 200 life points.
Yeah,
Wow.
you was like 100 or 200, one of the two.
Yeah. And that was after getting scythed, then he like bowl loaded me with update jammer, econned me, and then on my turn he Lanced me, and then I found a way to live, and then when I got past the Lancia, he died.
Wow, that's actually absurd.
Yeah, it was
Like-
one of the craziest games I've played.
Yeah, I thought like Sanctum would be more popular at Niagara. Like it was like kind of gaining in popularity, I think, but like not as much as once people have kind of like started to play around with it for like Cyber Orcust in particular, I think. Which is kind of like this past week and stuff. All right. So Nick asked me to set up like a specific scenario on Dueling Book. I remember this. And I noticed he was citing a very interesting card, aka Denko.
Oh no.
So, what was the motivation behind that idea? Obviously, like we were talking about how like Sphere Mode is fine because your deck doesn't really require your normal summons. So, like, obviously, Denko is just kind of like a solid answer because, since shotgunning Sanctum wouldn't really work because you guys play Impermanence too. So like Shotgun Sanctum loses to Imperm, but like, what was the reason for like experimenting with the Denko, and like why did you just drop it?
Okay, do you want me to talk about this?
You can talk about this one.
Okay, so
Yeah,
on I think it was what, Tuesday or Wednesday of this last week, we were like we said at the beginning of the video, we were like freaking out about Sanctum. Like, it's not Sanctum specifically, it's the board that is Infinity, Galatea, Dingrisu, with
Overflow
Sanctum plus
and,
Crescendo, or Sanctum Crescendo Overflow. Those are like the most unbreakable boards possible. So at the time that I thought about Denko and I told Ramiro about it, it didn't even like cross my mind that they would leave Dingrisu on the board and just shotgun the Sanctum so that they couldn't just get mega fleeted. I thought they would just still play around the mega fleet and would hold the Sanctum. So in theory, if people weren't shotgunning it, Denko would have been crazy, because if this deck just doesn't need its normal summon and you only have to play around an Infinity, they just die like 90% of the time.
Right.
But I talked to Ram. Ram talked to like Cameron and Gunther and a couple other people, and they just said they were shotgunning it. So that like idea got shot out the window, and we went back to freaking out. So.
But you ended up finding, like, did you think about Reboot at that time, or like was Denko like kind of the initial like option, or like what was kind of the progression of your like solutions, I suppose?
Denko was the first thing, and then we started asking our friends, like Gunther or people we knew playing the deck, what they would do if they had that specific hand. And every single one of them said they would shotgun Sanctum, and after that we kind of just threw Denko out the window.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then I think Phantazmay didn't even come up till like Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon. I think Nick just called me like he was on the way. He was on the way home and he's like, "Hey, I just had a really good idea," and then we just brought it up.
I was like, or into my drive back to Texas because I go to school in Oklahoma, so it was like a 3-hour drive back. So I was just spending my whole time like thinking about how to solve it, and I just like came to the realization that there's like no replacement for Lancia Reboot, and like the only card that could like have a good side deck potential against every deck right now is like Phantazmay, and then Phantazmay allows you to see 8 to 9 cards out of your deck to potentially see a combination of Lancia Reboot. And for those that don't know how Lancia and Crescendo beats it, if you Lancia them, they have to hard draw the Crescendo because they can't shuffle their Orcust monsters that aren't banished back with Galatea to get it. So then if you have Reboot, you just reboot the Sanctum. But yeah, so Phantazmay was like the only one because it gave you a monster on your board and allowed you to potentially see those cards.
So were you banking on drawing like both Lancia and Reboot? Because like it seems that if you like just draw Reboot by itself, it like doesn't do enough. Because like they'll have Crescendo still, obviously. So like, did you have to draw both of them, or were there like ways around it?
To beat that specific board / have a chance, you have to draw. There's just no way around it.
Gotcha.
You either have to draw the Lancia and Reboot or Reboot. But if they didn't end up drawing it, then Reboot still had some use because Overflow is a really good card, and some people do like setting up the Babel in the mirror match, just because of the cards like Mega Fleet and stuff like that. I know some people would tend to set a Babel if they didn't have Sanctum or stuff like that. That way, if they set up their Dingreaser to play Mega Fleet, once they negate something with Infinity, they could just like send it back to Dingreaser and send something else. So Reboot would still have some use negating Overflow, which is a very problematic card when backed up by that board. So
to like touch on that a little bit more, we were already citing Lancia Reboot before Sanctum came into the picture because it dealt with like the cards you were actually worried about. Lancia is obviously good against any Orcust variant, and then Reboot was just like really good against specifically Cyber Orcust without Sanctum because it would stop Crescendo and then cut off the Overflow.
Right.
So like we just didn't want to like take out the cards that we already knew were really good and weren't really able to be replaced because nothing else like filled the role, especially when Sanctum came into the play.
Yeah, so just now you're mentioning that like you were already citing Reboot for like Cyber Orcust prior to Sanctum, but did you ever cite Reboot for like other decks with like not even just Sanctum in mind, but like maybe like other decks that could utilize like maybe just any Orcust variant that has Crescendo, or did you like cite it in against like Salamangreat or anything like that?
We did cite it in against Salamangreat to shut off the Roar or the Rage. Also, once I saw the pure Orcust deck in Niagara, because I believe I played it like round 2 or something, I saw they were playing like Dynamiscus and like more trap cards, and I tried something that game because we hadn't played against that deck till then, and I figured that deck wasn't very strong going first, so I literally made it go first, and I started in Reboot, and Reboot ended up being really strong, and obviously our deck is very strong to play through their board, so Reboot was pretty good against pure Orcust deck, and it's really good against decks like True Draco and stuff like that.
Yeah, if anyone wants to actually like read the Konami blog, in the finals he actually draws Reboot, and it was just really unfortunate that Raphael actually had like Called by the Grave. Otherwise he would have killed them, and we actually did have a conversation yesterday. Yeah, Ram made a mistake in the finals, and he could have killed him through Crescendo Call by the Grave Ash. He just made a mistake in the line of play he made, and he could have definitely just won 2-0 very easily. But yeah, no, Reboot, like for me, and I know for Ram over like the past 2 weeks, especially in Guadalajara, has just been phenomenal, along with like Impermanence against those matchups is just really good.
All right, cool. Oh yeah, sorry about that. You had something to say?
I was actually gonna bring up. I actually in Guadalajara, um, I played against Infernoids in top four, and yeah, I got busted up bad game one because he won the die roll and he resolved double feast.
Ooh, yeah.
And then game three, I put in reboot and I won because I was able to reboot his feast, and that was pretty much it. So I probably would have lost that match if reboot was not in my deck.
Yeah, I feel like actually Infernoids have a really good matchup if they're able to resolve Feast against our deck.
Yeah.
So
really good.
Just DD Crows on legs.
touching on like Infernoids a little bit, we actually like prepared for this matchup. It's like crazy as it sounds. I think it was the first regional or the second regional Ramiro played at. He played against Infernoids, and he mentioned that Griffin is just like unbelievably good against that deck, because if you summon Griffin, they usually don't have any like link zones to point to, so they can never activate their effects. So when people are playing against Infernoids with this deck, I think it's really important that you prioritize Griffin and like Dingrisu, because it allows you to just basically grind through every single one of their Inferno monsters, and they get so little value trying to push through that board that like Griffin is so good. But like Ramiro said, the only thing we were like truly scared of is Feast, so reboot just solves that.
Alright, cool. Alright, so going back to a little bit to Phantazmay. So obviously we keep talking about how it's a way to, you know, see like combinations of Lancia and reboot for like those matchups that you wanted them for, and like all the blowout cards and everything. Did you ever like cite in Phantazmay in other matchups, like Striker for example, just to, like make that matchup like even more favorable? Like we have a good Striker matchup, but like did you ever just put it in to make it like even better, or was it just exclusively for the purposes of digging for like the other side cards?
No, I also put it against Sky Striker. If you read my top 4 match against Sky Striker, I actually summoned it after eradicating him, and it was just like, it gave me Armageddonite, which
oh my gosh,
which basically led me to killing him on my
that's
turn.
just crazy. Yeah.
And then I drew Foolish Return, and I was like, this is just like
This is absurd. Yeah.
this is the dream.
Yeah, I actually cited Phantazmay at a Brooklyn regional, and like when I boarded it against, I think I played against Carter Wicks, and like I boarded it in, and then like I kind of bricked on just Orcust cards, but like I just was able to shuffle them all back and like drew Chick Perfume. It was just insane.
Yeah,
that card's just
Definitely
nuts. Yeah. All right. Cool. So I guess next thing is, would you ever consider maybe setting another target for Curious Griffin, specifically for like the combo decks, like the Mirror Match or like Salamangreat? We were talking a little bit about DD Ground last week, but like, what kind of boards did you make since you didn't opt to run like anything else? Like, what would you like make games 2 and 3 like going first?
So like as far as the Mirror Match, the boards I would opt to make was, I would not set Order. I would opt to set Crescendo off of Griffin, and then set a Babel with Galatea. That way I played around cards like Cyber Dragon, Super Poly, and stuff like that, and it just ended up being really hard for people to break, even in most matchups. Like most decks can't break that. It's really strong, and that's what I opted to go inside of games.
So I will. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like, what was like the rationale for like not citing a specific like other floodgate maybe to set like DD Ground and stuff?
We just saw that you didn't really need to. You like that board alone is winning like almost every time if we go first. I think we just felt like that board is just really strong, and most decks just can't beat it.
So whenever I'm like building a deck, or like talking to Ramiro about like cards I want to play, obviously I think it's okay to say we considered other alternatives to like these cards. Like we talked about Summon Limit, we talked about a couple other cards as well, specifically like Goes and Match, a couple other cards that were good against the matchups we wanted against. But whenever we built this deck, the way the board you set up, like Ramiro said, he and sometimes you end on the Griffin play, but there's a lot of instances where you still can't end on Griffin. But the reason why this deck is so good, in the matches or the combo deck matches, you end on basically just a regular board plus Dweller, and there's like almost no chance you die. And what's crazy about this deck is if you have a Tiger on your board, which obviously you know this and most people at this point know this, you get 3 free monsters on your next turn. So you can make a Boral Sword without using 5 summons, so it plays with around Nibiru. And usually when Dweller's on the board or Nightmare's on the board, their board's pretty in shambles, trying to play through what you already had. So it's very easy to just like basically finish them the next turn without actually setting a floodgate, because the deck's strongest point are the cards in its main deck already and the extra deck cards available to us.
All right, cool. So like, I guess maybe just a hypothetical here. So like you mentioned that having access to both Crescendo and Babel sort of plays around like cards like Cyber Dragon and Super Poly. So like, I'm just curious in the cases where say you do get Super Poly and they clear like Galatea Dingirsu, did you opt to symbol revive Dingirsu for Ascend, or did you revive Galatea to make Crescendo live? Or was it just based on the game state?
It was just based on the game state. I would wait to see what they would do first. Obviously, the way I like to play is I don't react unless they put something on the board that threatens me, and that's just kind of like my philosophy about the game.
Yeah, I would agree. All right, awesome. So like, this is something that I know a lot of my viewers would probably be interested in hearing. So a lot of people ask me like about like specific sighting patterns, as far as specifically what to take out like between games. So like for games 2 and 3, since there's so many engine cards, like obviously you have the flex spots for 3 impermanents. But like in the cases where you want to side in say like 8 cards, like say Lancia, Reboot, and Phantazmay, for example, or something like that, what other cards did you feel like you could afford to take out, like in those cases where you're going second? And I guess what was also your general approach like to siding going first as well, like maybe running through some of the matchups, because I'm sure a lot of people want to hear about like this kind of theory.
Well, me and Nick, we talked about it, and we pretty much agreed on like almost everything that we sided out. We almost always side out a 1 Foolish Goods and 1 Perfume, and the theory behind that is obviously those cards get slightly weaker when you know Artifact Lancia is coming into play, so we want to see less dead cards, obviously. And then, like you mentioned, Infinite Impermanence is one of the flex spots that comes out. Imperial Order is also one of those cards if you're going second, especially. The only time we keep it in going second is against Sky Striker. Bigfoot is another card that comes out when you're playing against Orcust matchups, because Dingirsu is obviously obviously really good. It's not as live. And we like to side out typically 1 Mothman, generally, because we don't like seeing both, and having like 7 dangers is still really good. And I think the other card we would take out was I believe it was Foolish. Nick, correct me if I'm wrong.
You already said everything. The only other card we would ever take out is Tenki against Thunder.
Thunder, yeah.
Foolish is so good.
Yeah, that's like pretty similar to my siding philosophy as well. So yeah, all right. What about I guess the other thing was like, did you ever side anything going first a lot of the time, or you just keep the main board the same in a lot of matchups?
The only card that really goes in when we go first, I guess for like the mirror specifically, is Lancia, pretty much. Yeah. Other than that, in the mirror, I don't really want.
All right, cool. Anything else?
Yeah, like the only other card, like you said, like Lancia would come in when we go first against any Orcust variant. And then the only other card you really want to put on your deck is Twin Twister against Sky Striker instead of Impermanence. Impermanence is pretty bad against Striker, so you want to swap that out. Or you would do the same thing if you were playing against like Draco or any of the like heavy trap decks. You would just swap it out for Twin or Reboot.
Right.
You just want to eliminate the dead cards in your deck.
Yeah, so just like stronger optimization, but like largely keeping like all the engine cards intact.
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Alright, so now I guess we can move on to the extra deck a bit, but I don't really have much to say about this because I'm actually currently running the exact same list, so the only thing, it was coincidental, I was like, wow, I'm actually just running the exact same cards, that's crazy. But was there anything that maybe you missed for like utility or for other options, or did you like find everything was just sufficient?
I found everything to be sufficient. I don't think I missed any extra deck card this weekend at all. I really like all the cards I played.
Like, you caught the second Galatea, did you ever miss that, or was that like, was it just fine to have the long Girsu Galatea?
I believe there was only like one instance it came up, and it was because I had no other extenders, and it just, I think it was like I wanted to like summon Dingirsu to send something, and then be able to make another Galatea, because I only had the monster I brought back, and I just couldn't because obviously we only play one.
Gotcha.
And that was
Yeah.
the only time it came up.
Yeah, for the one Galatea, I think for me the extract was perfect, and I know he hasn't like missed anything based on what he told me. For one Galatea, the only reason we played one is obviously there's no extra space. I'm pretty sure he made every monster this tournament except for maybe Evil Torn Nightmare. I can't really remember. But overall, Galatea, or the second Galatea rather, only comes up in one instance where you are specifically in a situation where you don't have any extenders and you need to be able to summon Dingirsu on your opponent's turn, usually in the mid game or turn 2, after your board's linked and you don't have another Orcust monster in your extra deck. But at that point, most of the time you can just Portal Sword kill them. It's very, very rare that you need the extra Galatea to actually win the game, which we just were able to sacrifice. It never came up, I don't think.
Well, that sounds about right.
Alright, cool. So I guess that wraps up most of the like deck building discussion. So there's not too much left I have to ask here. Thank you guys for your time again. I know it's been quite a long interview so far, but the last couple questions here I guess are just more about general format theory. And we've actually touched on this before I officially started asking questions, like just at the beginning of the stream here. But like, what do you guys think about the upcoming format? Specifically, your thoughts on the ban list in regards to like Orcust variants. We were talking about the obvious hit, but how drastically do you think the format will shift, and how much do you think like your prep for YCS London will be changed? Like, obviously you don't have to divulge specifics since I'm sure you want to like conceal some information, but like just like I guess general thoughts on what you feel Konami is going to like address on the ban list.
The only thing I feel that's gonna get addressed is probably Mermaid, because it's like the obvious solution. Other than that, honestly, I've been so focused on these past few weeks that I haven't had a chance to like look or like start to think about the upcoming format. But in regards to that, I'm definitely gonna get back on it tomorrow and see where I think we're gonna shift. I don't really think Striker needs a hit. I don't think Sound Angry needs a hit. If anything, it'd probably just be like our deck. They got a hit. Winning 3 out of the last 4 YCSs is obviously really, 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 really huge, and it probably should have been 4 out of the last 4. So, in my opinion, a Lunalight card or like a card like Goods is probably going to see a hit, because Goods is also seen play in like Striker, obviously.
Yep.
So, yeah, I really do think one of those cards is going to get hit. As far as which one gets hit, I'm not too sure, but I think one of the Lunalight cards / support card is going to get hit.
Yeah, I kind of actually like, I think I actually released a video, it was earlier today, talking about like maybe potential hits, but I was kind of thinking that they're probably going to hit Tiger if anything, just because it's like the most abused card. That's kind of like what I feel is going to happen.
Yeah, I know. I saw some people talking about Kaleido Trick getting hit, which is also kind of really smart if you just outright ban it, because there's no way to like get them in the graveyard consistently.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, like if they like ban any like one of the major combo pieces, and the deck just becomes pretty much unplayable. So yeah.
Konami's really weird though, so I don't know, but I would be very surprised if no Lunalight card gets hit. At least I would be surprised. I don't know about Nick. Yeah. He said I was getting deck banned, so I don't know. We'll see.
Yep. So I guess what general advice would you have for players who are like trying to prepare for larger events? Like maybe anyone who like hasn't had as much experience as you guys for like, you know, traveling to a lot of like YCSs and stuff. Like, what would you, I guess, generally advise players to do as far as like trying to solve the format or like making strong meta calls or anything of that sort, or like play testing or anything like that?
Sorry, I literally just blanked. Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, so no problem. I was just asking like what general advice would you have for players to like, you know, prepare for events, like bigger events more efficiently? Like how would you I guess suggest people to like make proper meta calls or card choices, or just you know, generally trying to solve the format as best as they can?
Alright, that's gonna be a big thing. Give me a second.
Yeah, no problem.
If Nick has an answer right now, I guess say something.
Yeah, so that's kind of a big question that a lot of people ask. I know a lot of better players have obviously been asked that, and a lot of opinions have been made. A lot of the answers are usually the same. Typically, you just play a lot, don't get complacent with something. Whenever I'm looking at building a deck, I think the most important thing for me is putting in the time. You won't usually be able to get to the point where Ramiro is at unless you put in the time, and I can vouch for what he's done. It's unreal the amount of hours he's put into the game. But on top of that, I think it's really important to have people who have the same goal as you, because it makes getting there so much more easier. Ramiro and I have talked for like 3 years now, like playing the game competitively. We talked before like seriously traveling, and over the past 2 months, 3 months right now, leading up to nationals of this year, for some reason we were able just to like really play a lot more and really connect over the last 3 months, and we had the same goal, and it was just so much easier to like compete and like figure out where we wanted to because of the people that we were working with. So like I said, if I have any recommendation, is find people that have the same goal as you, reach out, and just do your research and put in the time.
All right, awesome. And I guess this is a bit maybe more of a personal question, not like super personal, but like how do you guys manage time? We were talking actually a little bit about this prior to the like the start as well, but yeah, how do you guys manage your time being able to travel and everything, like as far as, you know, work or school or any other obligations? Like how do you kind of balance everything? Just because like it's been a lot of traveling, it's been 5 events in a row and more to come, so like I guess some people would have some questions about, you know, maybe travel expenses or just, you know, general trying to I guess fit in the time to, you know, be able to practice and like prep and like actually travel and everything.
So for me at the moment, I am probably I would consider myself very fortunate. I actually work at the store that sponsors me, and so they're obviously very understanding of me going to these tournaments because they would like me to put our store out there and do well. And that's pretty much where I find the time. And then when I'm working, my boss / the owner of the team that sponsors me, he also plays a lot. He likes to play, and he's been really helpful for me the past few months. He really likes the Orcust deck as well, and ever since like nationals, me and him have just, when I'm not talking to Nick, I'm talking to him, and so I think that's part of where majority of my growth came from the past few months. So I always have someone talking to me about the game, and like Nick mentioned earlier, it's important to find someone who has like the same goals / ideals about the game. It makes it a little easier, and me and him see eye to eye on most things, And one thing that's also really important is, I guess, from your previous question also, is not to be afraid to try new things. I know a lot of players dismiss things before they even try it, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm very fortunate about that. And they basically let me take off the weekends to go play, but every time I've come back, it's like straight to work. So it has been exhausting because they actually vended the YCS this weekend, and we were pretty behind. So I put in late hours. I think we were at the shop most days till like 2, and it was very exhausting.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when I wasn't playing, I was working, and I was putting in hours and stuff like that. And then when I was done, I was trying to figure out the Sanctum thing.
So you probably just didn't get any sleep.
Yeah, it was a rough week. I think it was Thursday, so we actually had a tournament every day to prepare for the YCS. And we had a case tournament Thursday, and I told Nick, I was like, I'm so tired, man. I don't even want to play because like I was just so exhausted. And then I ended up playing because I was stuck there basically until we like closed. So I ended up playing. I obviously didn't do that well because I was exhausted. There's some things I could have done a little better. Aside from that, I got a little unfortunate in a few matches. Then Nick was like, "You have to drop from the tournament right now. Don't what was that word you said, Nick? Don't burn yourself out."
Oh yeah,
And,
don't burn yourself out.
And yeah, I think that's very important as well.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find the time to get some rest. Yeah, because I was definitely feeling it, and I knew I couldn't take any more playing. And I took all the Friday to relax. Obviously, I didn't play. We were just finishing up our theory about the deck and stuff like that. But yeah, maybe I know Nick struggles to find time to play as well. Being a full-time student, it can be very hard. When I was a student, I would just find the time. There's always time. It was just like an hour here, an hour there. It adds up. What matters is how you spend that time and how effective that time is used. Then it really doesn't matter if it's only like an hour a day or 2 hours a day. And that's what I would say. But maybe he can talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, full-time student is definitely not easy. It also doesn't help that I go to school and love sports.
Oh.
So
Are you like a student athlete?
I am not a student athlete. Oh heck no. I am.
Oh.
I'm like the scrawniest, shortest kid you'll ever meet. But no, I'm a huge fan of like football, and my school is very good at football. So I enjoy going to the games on weekends.
Gotcha.
But in terms of just finding time to play, I'd love to say that there's always time, but there isn't always. As a student, full time, you have a lot of classes. You're taking a lot of tests like every week. But having Ramiro being able to do like half the work for me, because he's going to the events every single weekend, so I'm getting results from him. It makes my job infinitely easier, which is why I touched on having the same goals and working with those people, because it makes both sides of the jobs easier. And when I'm making or like helping him theory or creating a deck or testing, like you mentioned, practicing a specific scenario that we were worried about, it makes my job a lot easier that in between classes, or like he said, when I have an hour here, an hour there, I can fully devote that time to practice those specific things and give him the results or the information that he needs to be successful.
All right, so you would say that like in the instances where you don't have time to like, you know, put in just hours on end to practice, like that theory was like really, really important, just being able to like chat with like, you know, teammates or just friends or anything of that sort, just like being able to like understand like, you know, the format better, like if you can't just, you know, go at it for hours on end, right?
Yeah, that's where
Mhm.
like friendship kicks in. He's a lot better at theorying than I am, and but I'm a lot better at technical play, I would say, than he is. So yeah, we basically just trade off.
Wait.
I like how that's like subtle shade. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we could, if Twitch chat has any questions, you guys can feel free to ask. So RedGriff24 asks, what deck would either Ramiro or Nick play this format if it wasn't an Orcust variant? So I guess this is more kind of like foreshadowing for next format in the hypothetical that Mermaid gets banned.
If I did not play an Orcust deck, I would probably be playing Salmon Grade again. That was the deck I was playing before Orcust, before I saw the light, you know, everything changed. Salmon Grade is obviously still a really good deck, and it's probably like the best deck that you can like tech a lot of cards in. And I really like that about a deck, that you can just put in like random card, like not random cards, but like taking a bunch of choices, and so that's what I really like about that deck. So if I wasn't playing Orcust, I'd probably be playing that deck.
Nick, what about you?
So my answer is far more interesting than Ramiro's because he's born. He chooses the worst decks possible. I would choose the superior Infinity strategy. It is. It's probably one of my. It is my favorite deck of all time. I really enjoy that deck and really always evolve. So if I were playing anything, and I do occasionally play it at locals whenever I'm not fully committed to the game, or when I don't have enough time to be able to play with like Ramiro, yeah, that's the deck I usually fall back on just to have fun.
Gotcha. All right,
but on a serious note, if I was playing a deck, it'd probably be Striker.
And like, I don't think Striker will really get hit. Maybe they will, but yeah, it's definitely I don't think it's like unbalanced or anything. But yeah. Right, Red Griff also asks, this was maybe answered, but why not Nibiru? Presumably for the side deck, of course.
So Nibiru was one of the cards I tested this past week. I believe I played it Wednesday and Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, it was Wednesday, Thursday.
And it just ended up not being, I guess, impactful enough. Obviously, it's good against like decks like Sonic Grade and stuff like that. But we just felt that you're already beating that deck like almost every time. The only card you're really afraid of is Dweller, and if you're able to stop that from like an impermanence or something, then you have nothing to worry about. And as far as we figured out, one of the best two card side decks you can have is like Nibiru and No Material. It was like one of the hardest things to beat with this deck, obviously.
Yeah.
But we didn't want to play. We didn't want to play it just because of that, because of the best two cards to see together. Obviously, we would want to play, if you see one of them, that's just like good enough. And Nibiru can be played around, obviously. That's why I didn't like it, but yeah, it was one of those cards that also just didn't end up making the cut. And Phantazmay, I believe, took that role too.
Yep, I think Ramiro covered it perfectly. Obviously, Nibiru is really good with like no material, but when it comes back to the side decking and choosing the best 15 cards, Nibiru didn't really cover that slot as well as we really wanted to. We thought there were superior cards like Phantazmay, and we couldn't like see ourselves taking out any of the other like 9 staples, being Lancia, Twin, and Reboot.
All right. Yeah, those are like cards that I would auto include for sure, just in the side deck for this deck. And like I haven't taken out those cards since like the beginning of the format, so yeah, I'm with you on that. All right, Destroyer asks, I heard Nick mention he likes sports, but is there anything else you guys do for fun, like hobbies-wise or anything like that?
He likes football. I like soccer. I haven't played in a while, but I definitely want to get back into it. And I also I like running on my free time. I've been focusing a little bit more on Yu-Gi-Oh as of late.
As evidenced by, you know, 5 weekends in a row.
Yeah. I have gained some weight, so we're gonna get back on that grind tomorrow. So hopefully I can get back out there. I do enjoy running. It's helps me ease my mind, and so hopefully.
Any other hobbies or interests of note for you, Nick?
Yeah, like Ramiro said, I really enjoy watching football. Whenever my school had games at home, I go to them, or I'm watching them on TV. I really like football, so. And then I have an amazing girlfriend, so I get to hang out with her whenever I'm not at school. So those are my 2 main hobbies.
All right, awesome. Blake the Lotus asks, if you left the game right now, what impact do you want to be able to say you made in the game? I guess just as like a player, like your legacy, so to speak.
I'll let Ramiro answer that question.
Can you repeat that question again?
If you left the game right now, what impact do you want to be able to say that you made in the game? Like as far as like your legacy or anything?
Like leaving the game wise, I guess. I would.
Like, how do you want people to remember you? I suppose it's
How
like.
do I want people to remember me?
Yeah.
I would probably want people to remember me. Obviously, a back-to-back champion, but more than that, as a player who put in a lot of time to the game, and that was like a good friend to most people, and just a good sport. Or that's generally what I strive to be. Like, I strive to like enjoy the game. Obviously, I like to win, but the main thing is to have fun. So I would want to be remembered as that person that had fun and was successful while doing it. So that's how I would want to be remembered in this game, probably.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, I see that Nick already answered the last question in chat there. So yeah, I guess that's the question was what Nick's going to school for.
I did see one question, and I know obviously you answered it in chat, but for those who were wondering, someone asked who is our favorite YouTuber, and then specifically said why is it. I want you to understand the role you actually did play. I think after the first regional, I found your YouTube channel. I think it was at the time when it was like 200 or 300 subscribers, and it started like getting views on your combo video.
Yeah.
I mentioned it to Ramiro, and you were known for like 4 weeks until like Niagara as the Lunalight guy.
Lunalight guy.
you were the Lunalight guy, and I think that out of everyone, you probably were the one YouTuber that was like generally like probably the most influential to the success that we had. So I just thought I'd put that out there for Destroyer 2. And for those people to know, like, your theory like matched a lot of ours, and it gave us a lot of confidence with what we were going through.
Yeah, where we were going.
Yeah.
Awesome. That actually makes me really happy. That inflates my ego a little bit. All right. Yeah, I think that's just about it for every question that people have. So I want to thank you guys again for joining me tonight. Very, very in-depth and long, thorough interview, but I hope you guys, got all your questions answered here in chat, and for the viewers at home, you guys have more insight as to how some of the more competitively successful players kind of think and approach the game. So yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in. Hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to leave a like if you did, as well as any thoughts or feedback in the comment section down below. Feel free to subscribe for more informative and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content. If you want to, you can follow me on Discord, Twitter, or Twitch. All 3 links are going to be in the description as always. And until next time, I will catch you in the next video. See you guys.